You have a TV?
No. I just like to read the TV guide. Read the TV guide. You don't need a TV. Television addict! Television addict! Television addict!
Hey everybody, welcome to TV Guidance Counselor. I am Ken Reed, your TV Guidance Counselor, the show in which I discuss classic viewing choices of our collective past using back issues of TV Guide magazine as the doorway into our memories. I just make that up. It's just garbage that I'm spouting as some sort of marketing ploy. Anyway, I am the on hiatus Boston stand-up comedian Ken Reed, and I've been doing this show since Valentine's Day 2014. Oh, how many things have happened since then. I say on hiatus, but for regular listeners of the show, a little bit of news. Next weekend, so Black Friday through Sunday, not Black Sunday, although I do love that movie, which I may watch right after I record this, just because, hey, Barbara Steele. I will be out. I'm leaving my house. I'm actually going to leave the house, and it's sort of a running joke, but it's not a joke. I really haven't left my house for more than an hour since March 13th, 2020, when I got back from LA. I did go to New Orleans in October for a few days, which was interesting, and did not inspire me to go anywhere anytime soon, but I will be dipping my toe back into the convention world, and I will be back at Northeast Comic Con, and I'll be doing all the panels and Q&As Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So you can go to northeastcomiccon.com, or I have posted links on all my social media. So I'll be doing a bunch of the interviews there, which I should be recording. And for those of you who are not in the New England area, you should be able to hear on this show at some point, but you know, who knows? Sometimes things fail, things change, but there's a great lineup of guests. So I likely will be talking to most of those people. If you go to that site and you want to ask me to ask somebody something, if you have any burning questions for those people, let me know. You can email me at tvguidancecounselor@gmail.com or ken@icanread.com. Also at tvguidance and at Kenneth W. Reed on Instagram and Twitter. Not on Meta. Not in the metaverse, everybody. Oh, God. But I will be there. So if you go, please stop by, say hello, masked and 6 feet away. But it will be interesting. That'll be my first foray back into conventions since I worked Reno Pop Culture Con in November 2019. So it'll be almost over 2 years since I've done a convention. Wow. But that should be interesting. That should be fun. So come down to that. And then in December, on Friday the 11th and Saturday the 12th, I'll have to double check the dates, but it's that weekend, I'll be doing a show with Todd Berry in Vermont and then one in Woodstock, New York. So some of you I know said you were coming to those. So let me know if you're going to head out to those as well. And that will be the first time I've done stand-up in almost 2 years. That is complete insanity, but slowly getting back into things. So we'll see how those end up. I'm trying, everybody. I know we all are. We're all just trying. It's all we can do. Speaking of trying, we tried and succeeded this week with an excellent episode. My guest is Shayna Feinberg, and Shayna is really, really talented. Just insanely talented, a director, a writer, performer. She's got documentaries, narrative films, done a ton of stuff. So glad to have her on the show. She did a great web series with a former guest of the show, Maeve Higgins, who's also one of my favorites. Just really, really talented lady. Also recorded this with a 10-week-old who actually joins us at some point. Spoiler alert at the end there. But I had a great time talking to her, so check out her stuff for sure. She also is a writer, is writing another book, does columns for the New York Times. Just really great. But you'll hear that for yourself as we chat here. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's episode of TV Guidance Counselor with my guest, Shayna Feinberg.
TV is my friend, and it has been always there for me in time of need.
Shayna Feinberg, how are you?
Hi,
Hi, thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. Thank you for doing it. You are, although you have one child, you are a new... Is there a thing like for a mother with a newborn that's like the word newlyweds?
I don't know.
Like a newly born? It doesn't... I can't think of something.
I am sort of a newly born, although I already had another kid, so I'm not... I guess I wouldn't count anymore. I do have a new baby. He's 10 weeks old.
I think it would still... Like, if you've been divorced and then you get remarried, you can still be a newlywed.
Okay, so I'm a newly born.
Okay.
A word that we have invented.
We've coined this term, and we will copyright it, and we're going to be super rich. Well, thank you for doing this. When I asked what year you wanted, the answer I got back was fall 92, which is particularly a good year in my world. So I was very excited that you picked fall 92.
Why is it a good year in your world?
Well, it's weird. Like, sort of the sweet spot for television seems to be when people were between sort of ages 8 to 12. Because you're kind of old enough to have your own taste, but not old enough to like go out and do anything. And so this is right in my sweet spot. Like 88 to 92 is kind of my sort of favorite years, or like most formative TV years. And 92 was like the last good year before I had to go through teenage awfulness.
Wait, were you born in 1980?
I was, yeah.
Okay, so I'm just deducing that.
Yes.
That's okay, cool. So I'm glad that I chose it. I honestly just totally randomly chose it.
Sometimes things work out.
Yeah, but when I was looking through the TV guide, which I have to say I loved seeing all the stuff. There's like, am I going off? Can I talk?
Nope. Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Okay, so there was a picture of Joan Rivers, and I just loved seeing it. Like, I remember as an adult, she died. How long ago do you think she died?
Was it like 4 or 5 years ago? Yeah. Well, the last 2 years, I have time has stopped meaning anything, but.
Right. It's true. But so I remember Joan Rivers, like at the end of her life as like a much older woman, but like seeing this picture of her in the TV guide, I was like, oh my God, I remember that Joan Rivers too. So it was fun. And also there was Cheers. And Bob Newhart. There was like a whole spread on Bob Newhart.
Yeah, this is his third show. So did you grow up in New York City?
I did. I grew up in Manhattan.
Okay, so were you... I think we're roughly of a similar age. And I think that, so New York City was where TV was produced until like 1965, and then it all moved to LA. And the only things you had for years were like game shows and soap operas, and then like the Cosby Show. But around this time, around 92, is sort of when MTV really started making a point out of the fact that they were shooting from New York City, and we got the first season of The Real World and all that.
Oh, that's crazy. I didn't even think about that because, okay, so, sorry, go on, and then I will.
So I was just going to say, like, that and Nickelodeon were so New York to me at this time. I'm always curious what it was like for people that actually grew up there. Like, I wasn't that far, but it might as well have been 1,000 miles.
Well, when you grow up in New York City, it really does feel like you live in the center of the world. Because it just feels like the world, I mean, now maybe it's different because the world has spread out and become more like global or whatever. But back then it really felt like, yeah, of course, like Cosby Show is here and The Real World. Like, it just felt like, yeah, this is where everything is, It's funny, when I was a kid, when the first Real World came out, my friend Shaniqua, who I grew up with, she's now this like very famous photographer, Shaniqua Jarvis, but she and I were obsessed with the first Real World, and we would pretend to like be the characters from it. Who
was your go-to?
I just blinked on her name. She was Heather. Who was I?
Were you Julie?
Yes, I was Julie.
Okay.
So I would be Julie and she would be Heather. And I don't know, it was just like such a crazy thing that show existed. And now it's just like, I feel like in some ways that was like the beginning of, that was like the proto, how they talk about proto-punk or whatever. Mm-hmm. That was like, or protozoa, if you're a science person. This was like, the Real World one was like proto reality TV. And then
they were the stooges of reality TV.
Right. And now there's like, everything is reality TV.
It's funny. Did you see the reunion they did last year?
I read about it. I didn't watch it. Did you watch it?
It's really good. If you're anything like me, you'll probably cry like a baby the whole time because it was like oddly emotional.
Really? Because it was like so reminiscent for you?
Yeah, like hit this weird nostalgia thing where I mean, at the time, and especially when you go back and rewatch that show, and I've rewatched the first couple seasons of The Real World, it is so dramatically different and better quality than what we get for reality TV now, in that it is manipulated and there is, you know, it's a TV show, but it really is kind of a fly on the wall documentary. And they really are these people who they haven't really cast. They're kind of like, let's get a mixture of different weird people and see what happens, instead of like, we need the bitchy and we need, you know, the bumpkin and we need, you know, the guy,
Right.
like they haven't quite figured out the types they want yet for the drama.
Right.
And it's kind of exciting. And it reminded me of how, to your point exactly, like how sort of exciting and new and, you know, as a tween before tweens, that felt so cool.
Right. Well, those people, they are like what, 10 years older than us?
Yeah, which seemed like a million years at the time. But yeah, now they were like, some of them weren't even 50, I think. They were like in their late 40s.
Right. So now it's like, oh, we would be friends. But
Yeah.
back then it was like I was a kid, like you were a kid, we were kids. And they were like, I mean, I knew they weren't old people. Like I knew they were cool. But
like
yeah.
Julie was 18, so she was the young one. But it was funny looking back at it now. The others treated her like a child, and they were like 20.
Right.
It was like, but I mean, I guess that's what matters when you're that age. Like those years are larger gaps than they would be now.
Totally. We even like when I was 28, I was dating a guy who was like 32 or something. And he was like, how old are you? 30? And I was like, no, I am 28.
How dare you?
I couldn't believe that he could think I was 30, you know? And it's like, now it's like, I mean, whatever. It's all so cuckoo.
Oh yeah, anyone from like 35 to 52, I'm like, we're pretty much the same age anyway. Like it's all the same.
Right. Exactly. Also, you don't know how old people are. Like I talk to humans, like adults, and then I find out that they were born in like 1999.
That's freakish. That freaks me out. Because I'm like, you can't be a dad. I thought you were older than me. You look like someone's dad. It's
Right.
a weird thing. Yeah, it's very strange. I mean, aging is weird in general, but also I think there's less definitive sort of age looks now. And sort of the thing that meme everyone posts where they're like, Paul Rudd now is the same age as Wilford Brimley in Cocoon.
Oh my God, that's so crazy.
And it was like,
I've seen that, but not that one. I've seen other ones.
and it's,
Yeah, no, there's not. It's true. Like, so I'm doing this, but my friend Julia and I do a column in the New York Times, and we had a book come out in January, and we're doing another book now, and so we're interviewing all these people. And this week we interviewed some people who are like roughly our age, but they're like, their style is totally different than mine and Julia's, and so I just assumed that they were like 20 years older.
right.
But then afterwards I was like, oh wait, no, those people are like my age. It's just that like they have a different style. Like It's like literally it's just a weird thing. Whereas I feel like when I was a kid, it was like parents looked certain, like there was like a thing that adults of a certain age.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's something to do with being like in your 40s, because maybe your 30s or your 40s, I don't know. Because in your 20, like in your 30s and 40s, you can be doing so many different things. Like you can be like still an intern in your 30s, or you could have a 15-year-old.
Right.
Like
or both.
Totally both.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like there's.
Yeah,
Anyway.
They're less set in the ways of like your sort of adult life, I think. But it's also, if I look back, and this will be a total sort of media studies aside that I apologize for, teenagers were invented in the 50s. They didn't exist before that. It was just like you were a child and then you were an adult. So even though when we were growing up, the 50s felt like 300 years ago, it was only 30 to 40 years previously. And sort of
Right.
in that time, we had, for a time, very defined sort of age groups, you know? There was like middle age, and we started getting midlife crisis stuff was like in the 70s that started, and then like retirees and boomers. And so that was kind of like the first time we got what we think of as those age groups.
Wow, I didn't know that. Are you a historian?
I read a lot. No, but I'm fascinated by this kind of stuff with how sort of the categories of people and sort of niche, the way we sort of broadcast stuff towards people, which totally changed post millennium. But like when I look at TV guides here, like Bob Newhart is actually a good example. He's on the cover here with his third show. He went through 3 generations of people who knew him from different things. He had a wildly popular 70s show, a hugely popular 80s show that most of us who we watched didn't even know about the 70s show. And then in the 90s, they tried to relaunch him again, and it was a huge failure.
That's the one I think I like must have seen a little bit of the 80s one and thought like, oh, like this is like, what's the word? It's like, this is like good TV, even though I wasn't, it was
Right.
it was beyond me. Like
Quality
I was
television.
for it, but yes, it was quality. But then I remember when they like relaunched, so that was the one in this TV guide. I remember when they relaunched and being like, this is a mess.
Yeah.
Like, do you remember it was like it was like Larry,
Daryl, and Daryl. Yeah, that was the 80s Newhart set in Vermont where he has the inn. This one, which the year before this, so in 91, they had the Newhart, the 80s show finale, which is famously one of the most famous finale twists of TV ever, where they had him wake up from a dream as his character from his 70s show.
oh my God.
Which blew everybody's mind. So for this show, they made him, because comic books had this big research, like big, huge 90s. They were huge mainstream wise for another variety of reasons I won't get into. But they decided we're going to combine that with Bob Newhart and make him this like comic book artist. That's the show. And he lives with his adult daughter. And it just didn't work. And then for the second season, they totally reworked it, recast everybody, and it still was terrible. And it sort of illustrates that change to me, that sort of change that stuff went through in the 90s.
Is he dead?
No, he's 96.
Oh my God. So wait, so we could relaunch another.
Yeah, he could do it. And he's had 3 other shows after this one, and they all failed. And the funny thing someone observed is like, if he has children in a show, it's terrible.
Oh, really?
So like every show he's had where he plays somebody's father, it just doesn't work. I don't know why.
Well, we should, if we had to do one, if it was like you and I got greenlit to do a show with Bob Newhart today, what would it be?
Let's
think
good.
about it.
I mean, I'm trying to think of what you would even do with a 95-year-old. Like, what kind of stories would you tell?
Let's see. How about, do you think he has his mind?
He does. I've actually seen him perform live in the last few years.
Okay, so how about what war would he have been in if he was a vet?
Korea, probably.
Oh, really? Not World War II?
Maybe 2, but I think, yeah.
Okay, so let's say he's a Korean war vet.
Mm-hmm.
And he's obviously retired and old. And then there's like I'm thinking like movie style, like there's like a reunion, but TV style, let's say there's like, it's like a Balky, what was that one called?
Perfect Strangers? Yeah.
Like a guy who was in his platoon who died, his son comes to live with him, and he's like a goofy character.
And he's kind of like, I want to learn, you knew my dad well and I didn't know him that well, so can you tell me about him kind of thing?
Yeah, but he like is from like a Greek island or something, so that he can be wacky and have like a Greek accent.
How about we add this in? And this may be too on trend, but he inadvertently becomes like a YouTuber.
Oh, that's great! I love it.
But he doesn't quite get it, but it ends up being like a whole thing where like this 95-year-old, it kind of like, you know, his outlook ends up, because things a circle, you know.
Wait, I have an idea.
Okay.
He lives alone because his wife has passed.
Mm-hmm.
And like a young distant relative comes, not his child, because I know those shows bomb,
Mm-hmm.
Comes to live with him because, they can't make ends meet.
I got it. They come to live with him because they're going to grad school and can't
Okay,
afford housing. And someone's like, "Oh, your great uncle whatever lives there."
Yes.
Yes.
So he lives with him, and that guy just happens to or woman, it could be anything. That person happens to have a YouTube channel just for fun, and then like Bob Newhart gets in it accidentally, and it like lights, catches fire. People just love it,
Greenlit. We just sold this in the room.
and he becomes a YouTube star.
Then we have to have him go through a journey where fame goes to his head and he becomes a real jerk. He has to,
Sure.
yeah. All right, we sold that big time. Yeah, he's sort of a fascinating character because again, he had a whole life before the shows. He was the first person to have a '1 album on a comedy album as the #1 album on Billboard, which is insane. And to your point with Joan Rivers, like this was 92 was Joan Rivers probably, I don't know, fourth career sort of, I would guess, or fourth sort of movement, because she was on TV writing movies in the 70s. She wrote a couple movies, she directed one. In the 80s she was sort of the heir to Johnny Carson till that whole thing fell apart, and then by this time she had reinvented herself as she had that daytime talk show. She was selling stuff on the Home Shopping Network and had sort of become an author at that point. So is there anyone else like that's had that many phases of their careers that are still around now that you can think of?
I was just going to ask you how many phases you had, but okay.
-1.
No, you have one at least.
That's true.
You have who you are now.
That's true.
I can't really think of anyone.
I feel like people's careers are just shorter lived now.
Yeah, but also maybe it's like more normal to like. I feel like what Donald Glover has like a billion careers. They just are all happening at once.
That's a good point.
Or like J-Lo.
Yeah, because we would have people who like they would be a singer and then they would start doing acting and never go back to singing. You're like, they used to be a singer, like Regis Philbin.
I feel like I've had personally like a billion. It's just that most of them haven't been successful, so no one knew about them.
Fair enough.
But yeah, I've had like a lot of different phases.
Are you? It's hard to, I guess, step out of yourself and look at it. But is this the best phase?
Oh yeah, for sure. I just keep getting better. I think like I think maybe some people like just know who they are. Like I think I knew who I was like personality wise, but I think some people like know what they want to do, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I like did all this. I had a public access TV show when I got out of college, and so that was really close to what I wanted to do, but I didn't realize it. And so I like tried to get all these jobs in like radio or in newspapers, or I tried to be like a yoga instructor for a really long time, which I was terrible at.
That's the weird one there. That one doesn't fit.
I was like really bad at it. But then I don't know. So I feel like little by little, like all these different things kind of like I would see, it was like the path would light up. Like I would see something and I'd be like, oh, that seems cool. Like that's what I want to do. But like there's other people in the world who I feel like just stumble, like they just know what they want, like from right away. And like there were, I think if I had been more like conscious, I would have, like in high school, I got to direct a play. Like I got to, and I remember I like did really well. And my teacher was like, yours was so tight. Like it was tight as a drum. Like you did such a good job. And like, if I had my like spidey senses or something, I think I would have been like, oh wait, this is like a note for me to go in that direction. But I was like, okay, cool. Now I'm just going to like flounder around for like 15 years. And then, anyway, so I think it took me a long time to get to like who I am, but
I think it's sort of reconciling what you want to do and what you're good at is sort of, it's counterintuitive to say, but it doesn't always go right together. So like sometimes I found that like the things I was good at or am good at growing up seemed boring or too easy in a lot of ways. We're like, well, I don't want to do that. That's not even, you can't even do that for a job. Like that's not, people get paid to do that. That's just some easy thing. So it's sort of like weirdly realizing that has value and then incorporating that into what you want to do is, I think, comes with just being older.
Yeah. Well, also like I'm of an age where I really like didn't know that women were directors. Like when I was really little, like the movies I watched were all directed by men. And so I just assumed, like I really just was like, oh, so that's the thing, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's so few.
Even when I made The Spew, which was my public access TV show, like I made it with my friend who's also a woman. Like the two of us were girls and we made it. But like, I didn't think I could do that professionally because I just didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, it's not an option. Like I had Penelope Spheeris on and hearing her story of being she went to, I think she was the first woman that graduated from like USC film school or something. This is like 1973, and there weren't any directing jobs. She wanted to be a director. So she had to make her own production company and shot basically music videos. Like if you've ever seen that footage of Parliament Funkadelic with the mothership coming down that they always show. Yeah. Like she shot that. So like she had to sort of make her own path, which is stupid. Like there's no, why is that? Why couldn't she get hired? She had the same qualifications as anyone else.
Right. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I think it's still something, like I sometimes will like see male filmmakers or hear them or read them doing interviews and people ask about like, who are your influences? And they'll say all the greats. And then they like only name men.
Yeah.
So I've like definitely, since I became aware of the fact that there were women filmmakers, I have like made it like a point to, if anyone ever asks me, I mean, I'm clearly influenced by some male directors as well, but like, I'm always like, oh, all the greats. And then I like name all these women.
Who would you name? I'm curious. Who would you?
Elaine May. I love like the first 45 minutes of Ishtar. I mean, I really love the whole thing. I love A New Leaf, which is a movie she made. And she also was like she was a script doctor and like made a lot of movies that I really love. The funniest part, like she did the funny stuff. So Elaine May, Agnes Varda, Joan Darling, who is like an early TV director. Now I've become friends with her recently, which is amazing for me. So it's like, there's just, I mean, obviously there's many more women too.
But even if I look at like the movies I loved, especially sort of like the teen movies I loved as a kid, which is like Fast Times, with Amy Heckerling and Penelope Spheeris.
Oh, I love them. And I love Clueless is an amazing, perfect movie.
And like Martha Coolidge, who did Real Genius, is probably my favorite comedy of all time, but she did that in Valley Girl. But they're sort of weird niches. And when you look at even though Martha, who I think is still the president of Directors Guild, I think, they didn't make that many movies. They made like 4 movies.
Well, that was the thing. Like, it still happens today. So I'm in this female filmmaking group called Film Fatales. And like before the pandemic, when we had our last like in-person meeting, we were talking about how like, even to this day, like I hosted one of the meetings right before everything shut down in February 2020. And in my living room were like 12 women who had like all gone to Sundance with their first feature. And it was like taking them so long to make their second feature because they're just not given the same chances that men are given. And, obviously that's changing very rapidly, I think, which is nice, but it's still not happening fast enough or like across the board enough. Like still, they just get fewer chances. And so they've just historically have made fewer movies because they didn't get as many chances.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Or they had to sort of come in through a different door and like start as an actor or something. Like I think of
Right.
like Kat Shea, or I think was it Kat Shea that did the first Pet Cemetery, and she was an actor forever first. Or even more high profile, or Jodie Foster, or those sorts of people.
Yeah.
And then doing this show. Where I've sort of interviewed and befriended a lot of actresses who were in so many things I loved growing up. They all were sort of aware enough, sadly, that there was a shelf life to their in front of the camera career, more so
Yeah.
than a man. So they went out of their way while they were at the height of working to learn everything they possibly could about production. So as soon as they stopped getting hired for acting gigs, they went right behind the camera. Like someone like Joanna Kearns, who's been directing, TV for like 30 years now, or like Katie McLean, or these people who they kind of were aware, like, oh, I can go into directing this way, but they still had to go in through acting first.
Yeah. Well, that's what happened with Joan Darling as well. She was an actor, and then she went to Norman Lear, was talking to Norman Lear, and he actually was like, you should be a director, and made her direct Mary Hartman, which is incredible.
Right. And sort of so benefited from having a woman director that show. Like, I feel like it was like the sensibility of that show needed that.
Totally.
But when I think of like Bonnie Hunt's one of my heroes, and when I had Bonnie on the show, she was the first woman to write, direct, and star in her own TV show, and it didn't happen till 1995.
That's so freaking crazy.
That's crazy. And when she got asked to be on SNL in the mid 80s when she was at Second City, and the reason she turned it down was because at that time they only hired women as writers or performers. You couldn't be both.
Wow.
And she was like, I'll be a writer performer. They're like, oh, women you have to do one or the other. And then, and it was like, no.
Yeah, that's so insane.
I mean, that's what Tina Fey did. She was a writer first and then became a performer because you couldn't be both.
Right. So wait, so what are some of your favorite, like female driven TV shows?
I love Kate and Allie.
Okay.
That's a show that totally holds up still. It's just great dialogue and characters, and also a great New York show, like the sort of cold opens where they're just kind of walking and talking. And it's a totally timeless show because it's just, people living together, we're friends. I love, what else am I don't know if it's female driven, but the main character is female in the show Fringe, if you've ever seen that. It's a sci-fi show from the...
I haven't. Is it good?
It's great. It's great. Anna Torv is in it, who was in like Mindhunter and a bunch of other things, and she's really, really great. What else? I'm trying to think now.
Have you seen Work in Progress on Showtime?
No, is it good?
I love it. It's so good.
I need to see that. I'm so behind on newer stuff.
Oh, okay. So you're like up on the old stuff.
Yeah, I have this big pile of stuff I need to catch up on. Like, I was a big Facts of Life fan.
Wow.
Which is not the best show on earth, but was still pretty great. My So-Called Life, that's the one I have to go with as like maybe my favorite. And that's such a female-driven show with Winnie Holzman was in charge of it, and, the 3 of the 4 main characters, and weirdly felt more... The sort of sensibility of it was more how I felt at that age, rather than like a boy show.
Right.
How about you? Were there other TV shows?
I mean, I love Work in Progress. I love Desiree Akhavan's show, The Bisexual. I really love that show. It was only 1 season. What else?
There's a bunch of UK shows as well that I really liked.
Yes, I love This Way Up that just came out. Like this last couple of years. I really liked that show a lot with what's her name? Aisling or Ashley
B. Yeah.
B.
Aisling B, yeah. Yeah.
I know Maeve knows her actually.
Yeah. Or Derry Girls, which Maeve is in. Not Derry Girls. Maeve's in Moon Boy. She's in Moon Boy.
Oh, right. But I also loved Dairy Girls.
Yes.
I might have to bring my baby down.
Oh, yeah. No problem at all. Take your time. Are there things that you feel like you need to show your kids when they're old enough? Like, are there things that you'll try to introduce them to that you wish you had seen at a certain age that are in this sort of...
I feel like I already do that with my 6-year-old. Like something that I noticed that I do is like, if we watch any music videos, I'm always like, these parts could be women. Like, that's something I definitely do. That's kind of the opposite of what you're asking. But yeah, I'm like, this doesn't have to all be men, you know?
Right.
But I definitely like to show my kid like stuff with women acting in ways that I think is cool. Not just like being like, hey, can I serve you or whatever?
Save me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is, I'm a huge horror fan, and I really had a problem with the It remake from a couple years ago. I don't know if you saw that. Because they totally changed the character of the girl in the gang and made them have to like rescue her.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, no, the whole point was that like as a group they were strong and she was on the same level. And I'm like, I don't understand how someone can miss the point of something that much.
Yeah.
Now.
No, I know. Well, that's like my first feature that I made is called The Baby Mooners, and my husband and I made it together, and it's like a gender reversal. Like, I'm the main character and like he's the manic pixie dream girl. And like I definitely feel like I constantly am sort of like, I mean, my kid is very into, like, he loves to watch movies and TV and also just make things because we're filmmakers, and he's like, can we film this? Like, I want to film this, you know? But I definitely try to constantly be like, oh, she's so funny, isn't she? Like that character is really funny. She's the funny one. Because I feel like even though the world has changed and gotten better in some ways, like it's just crazy how much like people really think that, like, you know, it's just still like, oh, dudes are funnier or whatever it is. Or
Yeah.
like dudes are the main characters.
Or more bankable. Like they'll be like, well, we did a woman comedy last year. We can't have two.
Right. Or like if like a woman's movie tanks, it's like then nobody gets a movie for a while or something.
Right. It's like, I don't think that was the problem.
Right.
You might as well be like, well, this movie, the title started with B, so we're not going to be making any movies that start with B for a couple years now.
Exactly.
This is totally unrelated. So did you go day by day, or would you just write down anything that sort of struck your fancy as you flipped through?
I just wrote down things that struck my fancy, like Cheers, Newhart, Joan Rivers, The King and I saw was playing.
Yes.
It was like, I don't even know if I've ever seen The King and I, but my mom starred in it when she was in high school in her like small town, and it was like the talk of the town. And I have this whole album here actually that's just like these pictures of her starring as Anna. So it's like this like huge thing in my brain, even though I don't know if I've ever seen it. I think my child is joining us.
Oh, excellent.
Happening with him.
He's a little upset.
Oh,
this is our second born.
we have a second guest. Oh, hello.
For those of you who can't see him, he has a round face and he looks like a baby.
He does. He's very baby-like. I can confirm to the listeners, it is a baby.
Yes, there is a baby here. Not a Shih Tzu.
Right.
We had a Shih Tzu before, but he died. He was 17.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, he was my first baby.
Yeah, we have 3 dogs here, and we treat them like children, and it's obscene.
What kinds of dogs do you want? I'll just keep him.
Okay.
We have a standard poodle, a labradoodle, and like a Wheaton retriever mix.
Oh, cool.
So
That seems cool.
we completely spoil them, and it's ridiculous how much we do.
So back to the ones they were down. I wanted to talk about Cheers.
Yes, let's talk about Cheers. Yeah, for sure.
So that was like a show that I watched that was like major in my life. I don't know if was
Huge.
It
I mean, I grew up in Boston as well, so it's like massive. Grew up in Boston with alcoholics in my family. So huge.
Yeah, it's like really interesting because I feel like, I guess you couldn't make Cheers now. Do you think that's true?
I think you could. I think that some of the social dynamic stuff isn't the same. So like the thing that I love about Cheers is the ultimately they're all alcoholics, and that's a great equalizer in that in this bar you have an accountant and a doctor and a mailman, and they're all there because they have this sort of vice in common, and then the only one who isn't, who's sober, is the bartender. So it's the only thing he has over them, and that I don't know if those dynamics quite exist in the same way now.
Yeah, because I would like to see a reboot of Cheers. I mean, even if it was like not exactly a reboot, but like with more modern characters, you know, like, but I think that, I don't know, I'm just like, it was such a fun sort of bullpen. Do you know what I mean when I say that?
It was unique in that it wasn't a workplace sitcom. And it wasn't a family sitcom.
Right.
There's very few shows I can think of that aren't one of those. Right.
And I don't remember them being out of the space very much.
Very rarely. It's a play. In a
lot of ways, it was like, did you just say as a play? I was just going to say, in a lot of ways, it was like a play.
Yeah, which is really hard to do. I think that's the other thing that I miss is that multicam sitcoms, which are really hard to do well, but when they're done well, are amazing. But they have this bad rep because the generation, I think, of kids that were younger than us, when they were growing up, multicam sitcoms were kind of co-opted by like the Disney Channel and like Nickelodeon, all those kinds of shows, like kids shows. So they look at them as sort of stupid and babyish, and they're used to single cam, more cinematic thing, but that's not inherent to the format. Like, you can make great stuff like that. It's just hard.
Yeah. I would even like to see a staging of some Cheers.
They did do that. They did do that. Yeah, they did a national tour where they did the pilot and 2 other episodes. It was like a 90-minute play. And they just did the scripts. They did it live as a play.
And it was the real actors, or was it different people?
It was different people. It was younger people. But it's that's also a skill set that a lot of actors don't have anymore, because it's not quite being in a movie and it's not quite being on a live show, and you have to do things differently, and it's a weird skill to learn.
Right.
So I think that it's hard to get people who can do that, because there were just some killer people. Like even something like Night Court, where we've lost like half the cast, but like John Larroquette was amazing, or even Roseanne, like Laurie Metcalf.
Yeah.
Unbelievably good on that show.
Right. Yeah, she was amazing. She's still amazing though. I mean,
yes.
Yeah, she was in that. She must have been in something else recently, but she was in Lady Bird.
Yes, Lady Bird, I think, was the last big thing she was in. She still works all the time. I think she's on The Conners, the new Roseanne.
Oh, right. I always forget about that.
Which is actually really good. What I've seen is it's exactly the same show. It's so weird in that it's not a nostalgia thing where they're like, hey, it's that guy, look at him, hey, we're referencing this old show. It really feels like the same characters, and we're just catching up with them 20 years later. Wow.
I'll have to give it a look. Or what are you watching? Like, if tonight, will you watch TV?
Yeah, I probably will.
What will you watch?
I usually go with like some comfort stuff. Like I watch a lot of like cooking shows or like
shows. Like which one?
I love America's Test Kitchen. I end up watching a lot of like Somebody Feed Phil, which is not a cooking show, but
I love that show too.
So that was a godsend in lockdown because it's such a nice show.
Yes. And also, like, you got to travel.
Yes.
Like, I watched so much Anthony Bourdain during lockdown because it was like, I got to like leave the house kind of, even though I was in the house. I was like, it felt like I was actually going to like, I don't know, Thailand or wherever he was.
Right. Yeah.
Korea, and then France, Italy. But also it was like, I was so hungry for like, you know, at the beginning, then it became like you could start ordering in or going out again. But at the beginning, when like it felt like you couldn't do anything and like we were washing our groceries and stuff.
Yeah.
Like I was missing things that I was just eating a lot of like what I could make, you know? And so it was like watching that show was like amazing because I was like, oh my God, this this like whatever this weird fish dish in Sicily is amazing.
Yeah, it felt like pure fantasy, or it felt like a thing where it was like, wow, we'll never be able to do this again, or something.
Yeah.
It's so, yeah, it was like this exotic thing. And I always describe Somebody Feed Phil as an Anthony Bourdain show with a guy that just compliments everybody instead. It's
He's a really nice guy. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I like Anthony Bourdain too, but he was obviously like he was darker.
yeah.
Whereas Somebody Feed Phil is just like, hey.
Yeah, great job, everybody. You're doing great. It's
Yeah.
just like, and that's what I needed. And I've been watching things like that. I actually just had a guest on who hosts this show in Scotland. It's called Scotland's Home of the Year. And she's an interior designer, and it's her and two other people. And they literally just go to these different people's houses in Scotland and like talk to them about how great their houses are, and all kinds of houses. Like there's like
Where can I watch that?
it's on YouTube now. It was on BBC Scotland,
amazing.
but it's so just sort of uplifting, and you're like, oh, they're just being like, hey, good job, everybody. Hey, here's a cool thing you did. It's just nice.
Yeah. I became obsessed with the chef show also. Do you watch that ever?
No.
Love that show so much. It's Jon Favreau and Chef Roy Choi.
Oh, yes, I know the show, yes.
Love it. I mean, I've watched like the episodes multiple times because I love that show so much.
Nailed it. Been watching a lot of Nailed It.
We watched a lot because I have my kid, my 6-year-old loves it.
Yeah. That stuff. It's weird how I reverted into that rather than like narrative stuff or like heavier stuff.
Yeah, well, I think we needed something light. But I also have to say, like, the last thing that I finished, the last like film that I made, I finished in, I guess, the beginning of September. It's a short documentary about my mom and this like crazy story that had happened to her when she got married to her first husband. But I think I was really influenced by all the cooking shows that I watched. So I filmed her cooking during, like, so she tells the story and then I put that story over footage of her that is her cooking this eggplant sauce. And I had a friend of mine who's an incredible documentary filmmaker film it, and he used like very fancy equipment. So there's all these like macro shots of eggplant and garlic and like, anyways, I think I must have been like really influenced by all the cooking shows that I watched. And I have to say that it's like really fun to make that stuff. It's like really fun to like watch someone like cutting up garlic and like hear the sizzles and like watch it being, I don't know, it was very satisfying.
It's an impressive skill set, and it's also something we can all lock into easily because we do it ourselves. But if we see someone doing it well, it's like, it's not so alien that it's easier to sort of lock into, I think.
Yeah.
And I always like when people ask me about stand-up, for a long time I couldn't think of a good, because I've been doing stand-up for almost 20 years. I couldn't think of a good analogy, and being a chef is the best analogy I've been able to come up with in the last few years, because you have your recipe, you know what you make, but you still have to start from scratch every night. And then once it's done, it's gone, you know?
Oh, that's so good. I love that.
That's the closest thing I could think of. And so, and even like when I watch a cooking show, that's like watching a stand-up special, in that they're both things you need to experience in real life to fully get something out of it. Like you need to eat there, but it's fun to watch them making it. You know, you need to see the thing live, but it's fun to watch, you know, the video of it. And I think that's kind of why I like some of the cooking shows and stuff too. Oh, hi, bud. I won't take up your whole night because I don't want your kid to hate me and have this traumatic event haunt them forever. But I'm curious. So you grew up in Manhattan, but you said your mom was from a small town. Like, what did she do for work? Like, what brought her to Manhattan?
My mom grew up in Ohio. My dad grew up in the Bronx, but my mom was an actor before so when she got her first husband was a musician, he played on, on Broadway as a pianist. And did music for Fantastics, this play from a musical from a long time ago. And so she was an actor, and they moved all over to like wherever his gigs were. And then they moved to New York. And then she had my sister and wound up giving up being an actor. and then got divorced from him and eventually got married to my dad and became a teacher. But yeah, so I mean, she's been in New York way longer than she was ever in her tiny town in Ohio. But you know, she was very influenced by it, and she was this sort of like this belle of the ball. And I think also like just the fact that she was gave up her career, her acting career, like really hung over me as a child and as a young adult, and made me be like, I'm gonna follow. She always said to me, follow your star, Shayna. So even though now, and I feel like I have been very successful in a lot of ways, and I have a lot of great successes under my belt. You know, I was still feeling like I'm still like getting there, and I still have goals and things that I haven't reached yet. But it's like, I never want to give up because I saw what happened to my mom. I mean, my mom's she's 80, she's totally kicking, and she's, you know, like a very nice lady.
Yeah.
But like, you know, I think it's like a thing that she still to this day regrets is that she like gave up on being an actor. And so I'm like, I will never give up on this dream.
Right. It's that you want to have your kids have a better life than you did, or like more opportunities than you did kind of thing. And you probably feel like, I have that, I'm going to make the most of it now.
Totally.
Not in like a tribute to her, not as like a cautionary example, but just because you've like
in sort of in a like, because she didn't get to, like, I'm doing it. And, you know, there's a lot of rejection, and it's hard to be like, it's not like being like, okay, I'm just gonna, I don't know. I don't even know.
It's not like being a carpenter or something where you're like, all right, if I hang in for 10 years, I'll be in a union and I'll get like a master carpenter license or whatever. It shows you all I know about carpentry.
It's yeah. I mean, I don't know. Maybe all the carpenters are like, I feel rejected all the time. And my bench isn't the best bench or whatever. I don't know. But like, there's a lot of, you know, it is a difficult business to be in. But I love making stuff so much. And I love making stuff for $0, and I love making stuff when people give me money, and I love making stuff that people read in national newspapers, and I love making stuff that's like literally just going to hang on my wall. I just love to make things, and I don't want to stop. And so I feel like, you know, you just have to kind of weather the bumps and keep going. And that's just like how it goes.
The lows can be low, but the peaks make it worth it, sort of. Like instead of just a right down the middle sort of, you know, nothing happens.
Totally.
You gotta go there.
And I happen to be the kind of person also who always has like so many, I have like a stove, like my career is a stove, and there's like, I don't know, 8 burners rather than 4. And it's like, I always have like a bunch of things on the burners. So it's like, I feel like, you know, there's some burners where it's like a fancy dish, and it's like, and then there's some that are just, you know, lentils, but I'm still going to like try and make it as good as possible. And, so yeah, so I think that helps too, is like having a lot of things going on.
Is there a dream project you have aside from remaking Cheers?
I want to have a TV show. I'd love to write and direct for TV. Like the closest I've ever gotten, was, like my digital series Dinette is funded by a local TV channel, but I would love to like have a TV show on a streaming platform, or write and direct, or both write and direct for TV shows that exist. That would be awesome. I mean, they have to be a certain kind of TV show because of my sensibilities, but yeah, that's my dream. I would love for my eggplant movie that I made about my mom to be a New York Times op doc. That would be amazing. Those are my big goals.
Is there someone you'd love to write for, or like a person you would always want to work with?
I would love to write for Work in Progress if they do a season 3. I love that show. I feel like the woman, Abby McEnany, is me. Like, she's OCD and like, I just love her. I just love that show. I would love to do that. If High Maintenance existed, I feel like that's my vibe, but I know they got they're like done now. So yeah, those would be shows. I'm trying to think of what else. I would love to, Ted Lasso. I really enjoy. I think my comedy is what you call blue sky comedy, where like the characters genuinely like each other.
Right.
And Ted Lasso is that same kind of blue sky comedy. So I think I could write and direct for them.
Which is a nice shift in that we went through the last 10 years of all the shows were about terrible people.
Right. It's nice now. I've been working on like a show Bible for a TV show, and it's fun to be like, okay, this is like the people have issues with each other, but they ultimately like each other. It's a blue sky.
Yeah, it's people trying their best. Like, I always say like an anti-hero is someone doing the wrong thing for the right reason. And we've had so many shows where it's just people doing the wrong thing for the wrong reason, and that's where the humor comes, which is sort of Seinfeld's fault. But I've had enough of it. Like I'm tired of bad people in comedies,
Right.
So I don't want to rob your son of his dinner. As he need to eat, we can wrap up.
I guess I should go feed him and bathe him and put him into bed.
Okay.
I really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you so much for having me on, and thanks for letting my special guest join us.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much for doing it. And this is a milestone here. This is the youngest guest we've ever had on the show.
Yeah, he's only 10 weeks.
I mean, that's going to be hard to beat. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
There you go. That's Shayna. I told you. Great. Really love talking to her. Maybe we'll have her back on when her child is less selfish, right? Jeez. No, very cute baby. You only heard the Coos. Is that what they're called? The Goo Goo Gagas, which is a good name for a Goo Goo Dolls tribute band. If anyone wants to join me, I have retaught myself guitar. If you want to start a Goo Goo Dolls tribute band called the Goo Goo Gagas, I'm totally on board. I feel like Goo Goo Dolls are unfairly used as a punchline. Like, they're a damn good band. They were a great punk rock band. Bob Mould produced their first few records. They sound like the Replacements. Paul Westerberg co-wrote some songs. I mean, Long Way Down, that's an amazing song. And their ballads are great. I don't care I will fight anyone who tries to make fun of the Goo Goo Dolls. Just let me know. I will fight you. I absolutely will fight you. Maybe to the death, to be honest with you, given the times that we're in. But if you'd like to fight me to the death about the Goo Goo Dolls or anything else, you can email me at tvguidancecounselor@gmail.com or ken@icanread.com, which will be my soon to be not on hiatus stand-up comedy website. Also, go to Northeast Comic Con, say hello to me, or go on their website. If there's any of the guests that you see there that you want me to ask something specific, I will do so for you. Also, patrons, thank you so much yet again. Patreon.com/TV Guidance Counselor. You guys make the show happen. If you want to give $1 all the way up to $10, $100,000 million, which is a real number, I would be forever in your debt, but not legally bindingly in your debt. So you can't take me to court on that. But thank you so much. Even if you don't give, I appreciate you guys listening each and every week. And I'm still doing the show. We're approaching episode 500 in year 9. So this is not, and I'm not sick of it. So also plan tentatively some LA excursions in 2022. So barring any unforeseen inflammations of global pandemics, I will be out and about in 2022. So what a bizarre time we're in, everybody. I know I say that, and I know you know that, but sometimes I just have to say it out loud again because, wow, weird times. But we're all in the weird times together, and we'll be in a weird time together next week on a brand new edition of TV Guidance Counselor.
A newly born, although I already had another kid, so I guess I wouldn't count anymore. I do have a new baby. He's 10 weeks old.